After the planning process, we're ready to start the pre-wire.
Now, pre-wire rough-in work is divided into a number of simple steps. Install the rough-in panels and outlet hardware, prepare the cable runs, drill the holes, pull and label the cable and secure it, and finally protect the pre-wire until trim out.
This is most of the hardware and cable that we'll be using for the rough-in. We've got cable hangers, back boxes, panels. I've got cable on big spools, and I've got a lot of wire in boxes.
You name it, we got it.
Yeah, I guess we do. We'll describe how the equipment is installed as we go along.
And we'll also be using the equipment and cable schedule we made during the planning process to know what to install and where.
Well, why don't I get started with the panels?
Great. I'll take the rough-in outlet hardware.
Okay, sounds
All right.
good.
Rich starts by mounting the first of two 50-inch enclosures. On the bottom, he removes the knockout for the electrical junction box. Then he removes the three knockouts on the top, since we'll be routing all the cables out the top.
Hey Grayson, can you give me a hand? Okay, I'm ready for the panel.
Rich positions the enclosures between two studs at a convenient working height, leaving at least 12 inches of clearance above and below.
I'm going to shoot in the top screw.
And secures it in place with wood screws.
Good.
The screw slots allow the enclosure position to be adjusted so it's flush with the back of the studs. Once both 50-inch enclosures are mounted, we install grommet strips around the knockout holes to prevent cable jacket damage. Next, Rich installs a 28-inch enclosure. He removes the top knockouts and the electrical junction box knockout. We mount this panel with a bottom aligned with the two 50-inch panels and install grommet strips in the knockout holes. When the panels are secured, we enlist the help of the electrical contractor to install a dedicated 15-amp branch circuit wired through the junction box of each enclosure. We also install a number 10 copper ground conductor between the grounding lug on each panel and run it to the house grounding electrode at the service entrance. While Richard's mounting the distribution panels, the crew and I are going to start mounting the outlet rough-in hardware. And I'm going to start with this outlet here in the master bedroom. Now, while you can use regular electrical boxes for your rough-in, these open back boxes provide a lot more room for the cable. And they have little mounting ears to attach the cable or, in this case, flexible conduit. They come in 1 and 2 gang versions and just simply nail on just like any other outlet. You could also use these metal or plastic mud rings, as they're called. Carlin also makes this little sidecar device that has mounting ears and a little adhesive pad that allow you to attach it to the side of an existing electrical box. This lets you co-locate your low voltage outlet with the electrical outlet, obviously very handy. Now they also make a version that molds the low voltage side right onto the side of an electrical box. This is great if you can get the electrical contractor to mount these where you need them. Another company makes this metal ring that also attaches over an existing electrical box, nails to the stud, and provides 1 or 2 places for your low voltage wiring as well. Now, when mounting standalone rough-in devices, keep the height above the floor consistent with the existing electrical boxes or light switches that are already in the room. If there are no nearby electrical boxes, the default recommended height for outlets is 12 inches from the subfloor. The height's usually measured from the subfloor to the lower outlet hole. 48 inches for volume controls, switches, and keypads, and 58 inches for consoles and keypads with a graphic display. Most of the rough-in boxes we'll be mounting will be standalone, such as this single gang box that Rich is mounting. But at several locations, we'll be using the rough-in bracket that snaps onto existing electrical boxes. Remember that anytime you co-locate low voltage wiring with high voltage wiring, they must be separated by a non-metallic barrier. Rich and I continue to mount rough-in boxes at tag locations. Here, Rich attempts to nail a double gang box in the entertainment shelf area. Well, at least he tries. He has better luck with the snap-on boxes. We mount a combination high and low voltage outlet rough-in in the top of the hall closet where the wireless access point will be located. And at wall phone locations, we mount mud rings at a convenient height for the phone. We also mount rough-ins for the cameras. This one in the kitchen and great room area, and outside on the front and back porch. And for the core access panel, security keypads, and volume controls.
Now earlier we drilled a hole in the roof here and put a 2-inch pipe through. This is for our cables for satellite and off air to get them up on the roof. Now we've used just standard 2-inch PVC pipe through one of these roof flashing gadgets from a home supply store. We've done an initial patch around to keep the moisture out, and the roofers will finish that off when they finish the roof. Now once we pull the cables through, we'll put them through this 180-degree bend, keep rain out, and when we're done pulling the cables, we'll stick some insulation up there to keep the moisture out.
The access pipe is secured with a conduit clamp in the rafter space below.
And we'll paint this for UV protection as well.
At a location near the electrical service entrance, we mount a 4x4 junction box with a plastic conduit attached so it'll pass through the outside wall. This will get our TP and coax cables outside to the service provider's NID.
Well, Grayson, I think that takes care of all the rough-in hardware.
Excellent. Time to drill our cable paths, I hope.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go over how we plan to run the cables.
Okay. Now take the time to plan your cable routes.
Well, Grayson, in a single-story house, the usual strategy is to go up into the attic, fan out through the rafters, and then come down through the walls to the outlets, right?
Right. Either that or, of course, go down in the crawl space across and up. Either way. And this house isn't going to be any different. I think what we're going to do, Rich, is go right up into the rafter space here from our panels. We got a few cables back into the garage. We're going to go kind of east and west right here for the 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
But it looks like the majority of our cables are going to go right down this hallway because most of the space is on this side of the house.
Okay, when we get to the office here, we'll branch off to the right, head into the office, and pick up the outlets here.
These, yeah. Then we can, looks like we can snake right up into this rafter space in the great room. We've got a bunch of cables that are just going to keep going straight over there to the breakfast area and then over into the kitchen.
Okay, well then we'll take a branch to the left. We'll pick one of these joist bays, put up some J-hooks to make the pole real clean.
Yeah,
when we
here.
get to the entertainment center, we're going to do a split and we'll come down on either side of the fireplace.
That sounds good. And then it looks like from that path we can get above that glue lamb into the master suite. So we'll take keep going straight with a group of cables till we hit that far wall, branch down in that those 2 rooms, and then we can pick up our far 2 master bath.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's drill some holes, Grayson.
Let's get drills. I love it.
Now I'm going to start by making several large holes above our panels to get all the cables down and through the knockouts. To do that, I'm going to use this 1.5-inch self-feeding bit. Now this baby makes quick work of large holes and is a real time saver.
While he's at it, Rich also makes the holes for the conduit we're going to run between the enclosures. As you can see, we later installed 1.5-inch flexible conduit between each enclosure to provide an easy path for the cabling we'll need between them. Now, if you have an attic or crawl space, we highly recommend running a 2-inch conduit from the enclosure to that space as well to make future wiring changes a lot easier. About this time, the crew for Arizona Sound and Light, the primary low-voltage contractor for the job, arrived at the site to give us a hand.
Steve, glad you can make it to the job here.
Hi, I'm Rich.
How you doing, Rich? I'm Eric.
Well, we got all the hard work done. Come on, we'll show you the rest of the job. Now, we've gone ahead and installed the panels. This is going to be mostly voice and data.
This is our RF, all the coax is going to go in here, and this is going to be security, and the termination for that A-bus stuff is going to go in this panel. And then we labeled them DC1, DC2, DC3.
So this is your cable schedule.
All right.
Okay.
All right, and everything is laid out by wire ID number. You've got your destinations and origins, and then we've got the outlet boxes right
Eric ought to
here.
look over
And then
it.
this will have labels on the other end, right?
Absolutely, the labels from the box matches the other end, and they go right on down the line.
Okay.
So you guys can just fan out to the two rooms. We've got a few cables in the garage, but mostly it's all down the hallway there.
Okay.
We've got one trunk already run heading
Yeah.
toward the master bedroom.
All right.
It follows these J-hooks. Let's take a look at this and see if we can get started.
Yeah.
If you look up here, we got one there. We got one here. Then we come over this way.
I like to make all the holes for the cable first, then pull the cables. I'm going to start with the drilling for the outlets here in the kitchen area up into the rafter space. There are a few important rules and tips for picking the best cable path. First, keep your cables out of the way of other services and trades.
Don't run cable through holes occupied by electrical wiring, plumbing, water or sewer lines, or gas lines. Movement or vibration of pipes can damage your cable. Do not run your cable next to electrical wiring. Try to keep at least 6 or more inches away to avoid noise pickup.
Now, drilling a hole always weakens a support member, so use the smallest hole that will allow a loose pull of the cables. This 1-inch hole made with an auger bit is fine for 2 Cat 5 and 2 RG6s.
While you can use paddle bits for holes up to 1 inch, they're painfully slow and take a lot of work to push the bit. Self-feeding auger bits are the best choice for hole sizes from 1/2 inch up to 1 1/4 inch. When you've got to spend a lot of time making holes, they do most of the work for you. For large holes from 1 1/4 to 2 1/2 inch, we highly recommend the Milwaukee Hole Hog self-feeding bits. While I'm working in the kitchen, Rich starts on the cable run to the NID.
Remember, holes in studs can't be closer than 1 1/4 inch to the edge of the stud without using a guard plate. This limits you to a centered 1-inch hole. For a standard 2x4, the code limit is a 1 3/8 inch hole for load-bearing studs and 2-inch for non-load-bearing studs. If the hole is closer than 1 1/4 inches, a 1/16 inch steel plate prevents sheetrock screws or nails from damaging your cable.
Holes in joists have to be 2 inches or more from the top or bottom of the joist and not bigger than 1 1/2 inch in a 2x6, up to 3 inches maximum in a 2x10 or larger. Rich and I and the ASL crew continue to drill the necessary holes we'll need for each cable run, making sure each path will be in an enclosed space. Since we'll also be doing the security system install, Eric works his way around the house, making all the necessary door and window sensor holes. If you're doing your installation in a steel-framed house, the metal framing members will already have cutouts for the cables. But you must protect the cable from damage by sharp metal edges with a bushing or grommet fastened in place prior to installing the cable. These come in many shapes and sizes and can be obtained from electrical supply stores.
Once we have the holes drilled, it's time to pull the cable. To make this job easier, more reliable, and neater, we're going to mount some of these cable pulling aids, hooks, loops, pulleys, throughout these roof rafters. It takes a little extra time up front, but will make the pulls go a lot quicker and keep the cable from getting hung up on all the cross bracing.
Since nearly all cable runs from the distribution panels will be pulled down this rafter space over the central hallway and branch either to the side bedrooms or go into the rafter space over the great room, we're going to mount a series of 4-inch J-hooks every 4 feet or so. These hooks have pulleys to make long cable pulls much easier. As each cable bundle is pulled, the bundle can be dropped down into the J-hook out of the way of the next pull. Additional 4-inch hooks are installed in the great room rafter space to handle the cables to the master suite area. We also install a series of double hooks across the great room rafter space for cables to the kitchen and breakfast area.
Looks like we're finally ready to start pulling cable.
Well, it sure does.
Well, you know, the cable schedule we made earlier is going to tell us which cable we need to pull to which outlet location.
You know, it really doesn't matter if we pull from the outlet boxes back to the distribution center or from the center back out to the boxes. And we chose to keep our cable right here in the laundry room.
Sure.
So that we don't have to move the boxes and spools around so much.
Right, and I'm not about to move these around very much, that's for sure. And we're going to use a variety of Genesis cable on the job. We've got 3 different colors of Cat5 for different applications: regular quad RG6, audio cable, and 2 and 4 conductor security cable. We've got this Siamese quad RG6, handy on our roof locations. And where we need 2 Cat5 and 2 RG6 at the same outlet, we're going to pull this bundle cable. It's got all 4 inside a common jacket. And we're even going to use the Siamese Cat5 and RG6. This is real handy at places like camera locations.
For larger wire and lengths, they're going to come on big spools like this. And the easiest way to install this stuff is to hang it on a pipe temporarily on studs right near the pull location.
Yeah, looks good. So let's get started. And we recommend pulling to a floor or section of the house at a time, starting with the farthest location first.
Well, Grayson, why don't we pull to the master bedroom suite then? That's the farthest away from here.
Sure.
And we've got outlets 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's a structured cable and 3 separate cables.
Right. Now, try pulling all the cable you need at an outlet at one time. It saves a lot of time. And to save a lot of headaches later, make sure you label each cable before you pull it. Now, we recommend using a pre-wire trim-out labeling system like we're going to use. We're going to put a temporary label during pre-wire and replace it with a permanent label at trim-out. You'll see why this saves a lot of time later.
Blank peel and stick labels, clear and white, are available from electrical and cable distributors. They're large enough to wrap 2 or 3 times around the cable, with a clear part to go over your writing to protect it. You can also use pre-printed number and letter labels available from the same sources. Trim-out final labeling can also use peel and stick labels that you write on, but a more professional installation will use a label from a portable label maker. You can also use a PC and printer to pre-print all your labels you need for the job in the shop.
Now we're going to use these write-on labels. There are 2 labels for each cable. One is attached to the end that we pull through, and the other one we're going to leave on the box so that at the end when we cut them, we don't get mixed up.
Okay, now when you've got to pull several cables at a time, it's a lot easier if you wrap the ends together with a piece of tape so they don't come apart while you're trying to pull them. Okay, we were going to use a bundle cable and 3 of these cables at a time. Let's give that a shot.
Okay, here's your first label. This is the blue Cat5.
All right, this is 2A. Hang on. Okay,
Super.
and
Here's your second label. That's
give me the one for the box. 2A
you
for the
betcha.
box.
2A for the box.
Because I don't want to forget what I'm doing here.
Great idea.
2A. All right.
Perfect. Okay, this is your orange Cat5.
Orange Cat5. Okay.
And here's your orange Cat5 for the box.
Box.
Okay, now we have an RG6.
RG6.
There's for the cable.
All right.
And here's your RG6 for the box.
Box.
Okay. All
And
right.
this puppy, give me number.
We've got
this
number
is
3 for the structured cable.
Okay.
And we've got a number 3. We'll put it on the big spool. Thank you very much. Here we go.
Like most of the bundles we'll pull, we feed the cable down the hallway through the J-hook pulleys up into the rafter space over the great room.
Pulling good.
From there, I follow the J-hooks we mounted across the room parallel to the rafters. Once in the master suite, the bundle cable branches off to outlet number 2 on the east wall of the master bedroom. Once the slack is removed and I double check that the cable is run to the right location, I cut the cable to the right length and reposition the label. The remaining 2 Cat5 and the RG6 cable are routed down to outlet number 4 on the west wall of the master bedroom. After each bundle of cable is pulled, we drop the cables off the pulleys into the J-hook to get ready for the next cable pull. When the cables are pulled, Rich takes the labels from the boxes or spools and applies them to the cable, then cuts the cable with a little extra slack. He then passes them through the feed holes. Now this is a lot easier than trying to feed the cable through these holes when the cable is being pulled.
Now, never try to yank cable around a sharp bend or pull it too hard. Each cable has a maximum pull tension established by the manufacturer. For Category 5, this is typically 25 pounds. Exceeding it, particularly around a sharp bend, can damage the cable or tear the jacket. For coaxial cable, it's around 35 pounds. Exceeding that can break the shield. The foil is particularly vulnerable. Now, for other types of cable, consult the manufacturer's product literature. Now, when pulling across a sharp bend, either use two people or feed the cable like this as you go. Now, if you're pulling cable through a hole that already has cable in it, be extra careful. The friction on the rubbing jackets can possibly damage the jacket of some of the cable.
Make sure there are no kinks. A kink is another example of exceeding the minimum bend radius. If a cable has been pulled with a kink, it's probably been damaged, especially coaxial cable. Play it safe and replace it. And don't even think about a splice. A splice will destroy the characteristics of TP cable, and a splice in coax is just as bad. Any splice is a possible poor, corroded connection and a problem just waiting to happen. Simply make sure there's enough wire on the spool to make the run.
Now, all communication cable has a recommended minimum bend radius. For TP cable, this is about 1 inch. Now, too sharp a bend in TP will cause the pairs to untwist and cross with other pairs. For coaxial cable, the minimum bend radius is about 2.5 inches. Now, too sharp a bend in coax will cause the center conductor to cut through the dielectric and short to the shield.
We continue to pull the cables in bundled groups to specific areas. Rich pulls the power and data cables for the core access panel. Despite our best effort, it never goes quite as smooth as we try to make it look. Meanwhile, Steve pulls the cable needed for the kitchen and breakfast area across the J-hooks and the great room rafters. Then Steve and Eric pull the cables needed at the entertainment area. In this case, across the great room, to the far entertainment equipment shelves, and down. While Steve branches off into the master bedroom suite to pull the thermostat control cable. We also pull speaker cable to the volume control locations, and from there to the in-ceiling speakers. The cable to the speakers was zigzag stapled between the rafters for easy retrieval at trim out. We took photographs of each ceiling and wall speaker location we pre-wired to document the cable location for trim out. We also pulled 2 Cat5 and 2 RG6 cables to the service entrance location and provided enough slack cable outside to reach the telephone and cable NID.
Due to the very high frequencies from the LNB to the receiver, and the fact that the receiver is supplying power to the LNB over the coaxial cable, you need to be very careful not to exceed the installation specifications.
The signal loss from the LNB to the receiver can't exceed 20 dB. This equates to a maximum length at 1.45 GHz for DirecTV, of 150 feet for RG6 or 225 feet for RG11, and at 2.25 GHz for the dish network, of 125 feet for RG6 and 165 feet for RG11.
Since it's passing the DC operating current to the LNB, about 200 mils per LNB, the DC characteristics of the coax cable is very important. Now, the maximum voltage drop from the receiver to the LNB should not exceed 1.25 volts. This works out to a maximum loop resistance of about 6 ohms. Now, we're using very good quality 18 gauge solid conductor RG6 that's been tested to over 2.2 gigs, more than adequate for a 150-foot cable run. Now if you need to go longer distance, RG11 coax will really do the trick.
Once all the cables are pulled, we take a last look over the major cable paths to make sure all the slack is out of all the cable runs and there's no cable hanging down into the living spaces, kinked, or wrapped the wrong way around structural members. After we've done that, it's time to secure the cables. All low voltage cables must be secured every 3 or 4 feet to studs, joists, or rafters. This not only makes a neater installation, but will make sure they don't get accidentally damaged by other trades. To secure a small number of cables, use plastic insulated cable clamps that screw or nail to the stud. When secured, you should be able to move the cable through the clamp. For bundle cable, these 3/4 inch plastic clamps work great. For single cables, you can use plastic insulated T59 style staples. Just be careful not to staple through the cable. The plastic part should surround the cable prior to shooting the staple. Do not use the U-shaped staples used for electrical wiring. It's too easy to overnail and crush the cable, or worse, to accidentally cut through the cable. And don't use the round T25 staples. These also have a tendency to crush the cable, and are very easy to misalign and short or cut the cable conductors. These snap together cable clamps, staple in place, will hold several speaker, TP, or coax cables and allow you to remove or add cables easily. For large bundles of cable, Leviton makes these hook and loop saddle tie downs. They attach with wood screws and allow you to easily reposition or add or remove cables. Make sure all the cables and rafters and crawl spaces are also secured to joists and cross members to prevent them from getting tangled up or falling down into areas that are going to be sheetrock. This is easy to do with these caddy milli ties we used. Rich and I also use 1/2 inch wide Velcro strapping to secure together loose bundles in the rafter space. The Velcro strapping also worked better than trying to use large conventional cable ties that tended to break against the edges of the J-hooks. When the cables have been secured, use a cable cutter to cut off the excess cable at the outlet with enough slack to make it easy to apply connectors at trim out. Between 12 and 18 inches is a good length. Move the cable label or relabel as necessary. Then secure the cable ends to the rough-end box so they'll be easy to retrieve at trim out and out of the way of other trades. We looped the cable through the holes in the back of the brackets or wound them inside the boxes and secured them with a cable tie. When securing the end of a bundle cable, we recommend that you remove the jacket now, back several inches before it reaches the box, and label the individual cables. This is going to make getting the cables out of the box at trim out a heck of a lot easier. We also decided to install 2-inch flexible conduit in the walls around the entertainment area, since the built-in shelves or niches are not only divided by the central fireplace, but are sheetrock, so there's no way to run wires between them. The conduit allows interconnect cables between equipment or speakers to be run between any shelf and any other shelf if necessary. The conduit is secured behind the open back rough-end boxes and runs up one side, across the top, and down the other side. On a job this size, it's a good idea to check to make sure that each cable that's supposed to originate at a distribution center is installed and labeled properly, and in our case, that it's pulled to the correct enclosure. We found several TP cables from volume controls pulled to the DC2 enclosure that should have been pulled over to the 28-inch DC3 enclosure. Luckily, there was enough slack. Once they're checked, we trim each cable to a reasonable length, about 18 inches below the bottom of the enclosure, moving the label if necessary. Once that's done, we tie the cables together and secure them inside the enclosure.
Now our final step is to protect the pre-wire while the rest of the house is being finished. Well, it looks like you got them almost done here. Good, good.
To protect the panel, I'm going to cover it with the cardboard insert that comes with it to keep out paint and other construction debris until we get back.
You'd be surprised when you get back how covered with plaster and paint you sometimes can't even find this panel. So protection is definitely key here.
Then finally, we're going to walk around the house and check all our cables to make sure they're out of the way of the other trades and make sure that our labels are still intact.
All right. Well, I'll grab the clipboard and let's start, let's say, at the kitchen area of the house, and we'll work our way this way.
That sounds good. Let's go.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and catch this one right here?
At each location, Rich and I check to make sure the correct cables are terminated at the location, that the labels are intact, and the cables are secure to the rough end box.
44, 45, 49,
47. Got 'em.
Okay, we've got 28, kitchen.
Got it.
That's got 49.
This whole process took us about 30 minutes, but if we caught one mistake, it would save us hours of work during trim out. In fact, we found 2 cables swapped behind the entertainment center.
CD. Okay, looks good. Well, that finishes the pre-wire part of the project.
We'll see you back here in a few weeks in the next part of the program for the trim out work.
I can't wait to see this thing powered up. I want to see how it works.
I want to get some bits flowing through that house.
In the meantime, let's go get some food flowing.
I'm with you.